Good morning, Australia, and welcome to What Lies in the Sunday Telegraph, a weekly exploration of the river of filth that is Australia's leading newspaper, number one selling newspaper. Not sure if it leads much. So, armed with the power of critical thinking and a copy of the Sunday Telegraph, we're going to try and figure out what the most powerful people in this country want us to think, and maybe discuss why we shouldn't. So, what have we got? Front page, Asha Keddy in a nice frock. Good for her. And then next to that, and she's obscuring the masthead as well, so the graphic designers stayed up late doing that, I imagine. Well, they just slid the image up. Doesn't take very long, really. Okay. Vile CBD stab video. Shock new allegations. Myrtney filmed victim's body while shouting jihadi slogan. This is an Ava Benny Morrison exclusive. This is, of course, referring to the stabbing rampage by Myrtney in the Sydney CBD, brought to an end by the intrepid forces of good, Aussie blokes coming together with milk crates. And, you know, it's nice that they took action and successfully subdued him. Well done them. And, you know, the memes of milk crates, not guns, that's funny. It's okay. It's good. Then you got the argument about, are we erasing his victim? Are we overly emphasising her profession as a sex worker? Is her identity as a sex worker erasing her greater identity? Why are we talking about dudes with a milk crate when someone's dead? I think sometimes people read too much into Snap media decisions or even Snap social responses. But here we are, reading stuff into media responses. Okay, let's see. What do we got here? Now, Mix picks what's called the editor's best, which always seems weirdly attuned to the most advertising-heavy sections of the newspaper. So, the stellar glossy lift-out, the Vogue for people who can't afford Vogue, is featuring Ash's bold fashion move, the Offspring star's unexpected new role as the face of Maya. So that front page really is an ad for Maya then. Plus Chris Hemsworth amazed comic star Melissa McCarthy. Told a joke. Maybe she laughed. Okay, Body and Soul. The hot new fitness buzz for a supercharged workout. Because the fitness buffs are reading the Sunday Telegraph. Snow Patrol, the elite police squad who stare down blizzards. Escape, forget saving money, it's time to travel in luxury, say the advertisers in the travel section. Wuss Kids is banning keeping score in some junior sport, part of the wussification of an entire generation. God forbid they have fun and learn how to participate at that young age before introducing more advanced concepts. But some of the shitbag parents on the sideline want something to keep score, I guess. Police puppies meet the recruits named after deceased officers. Oh, that's some tear-jerking stuff there, isn't it? All right, Jaws the Revenge. He survived a shark attack, but Cole Rowland's troubles were just starting. And the 7-day TV guide, because the ether being, broadcast TV, you need to know what's on when instead of just streaming what you want when you want, like a normal human being. Time for coffee. 3 pods of Aldi's finest. Good stuff. Alright, Kerry-Anne Kenley is speaking out again. I wish she wouldn't. Right, Kerry-Anne Kenley has smashed the National Disability Insurance Scheme, saying it completely discriminates against those who become paraplegic or quadriplegic after the age of 65. True, they're in the aged care system. Kerry-Anne says, I think the government should be sued. I mean, there is a major issue with setting the line at 65, which is that not everyone can afford to retire at 65, and that number is going to increase. The whole thing's an expensive mess. It really should just, in my view, just be Medicare, as the, what do they call it in America, single payer. And that should include long-term care and our teeth. Cool. Alan Jones has been given a final notice for his disgusting comments about Jacinda Ardern. It's funny how after the 21st or 22nd warning for serious foulness, there he still is on another final warning. Great. Good work, Peter Costello, as the chairman of that board. So Annika Smethurst informs us that the South Australian National Party is in danger of deregistration. Right, so Parliament is going to debate laws to protect unborn babies. This is in a case where a woman lost her 8-month... She was 8 months pregnant when she lost a child in a car crash. She would like more vengeance. On the face of it, these laws seem harmless, but then once you start codifying rights of unborn babies, you start making abortion much more difficult. And many, including myself, would argue abortion is already quite difficult enough for those in that situation. Coalition voters are uneasy about the abortion debate. So selfie seekers in Sydney apparently still swarming the cliffs even hours after a woman fell to her death trying to get a great selfie. Look, young people do stupid, dangerous things all the time. The fact that they're recording that and they're desperately seeking the dopamine hits of extra likes is relatively new, but the Murdoch media's obsession with Instagram is a bit weird. Particularly given that, well, I guess it's because they used to be the sole arbiters of fame and they've been disintermediated. Sydney knife rampage, they're calling it breaking news, which I find hilarious given that it happened midweek. The blokes who stopped the killer still talk about how they're just brave, not heroes. Alright, so here's a funny one. Page 11, heat is on Fireys Union. The State Secretary of the Fire Brigade Employees Union is accused of spending nearly $1,500 on cigarettes, alcohol and other personal items using his work-issued credit card in breach of union policy. I feel at the $1,500 mark, it really is a matter between him and his employer, and possibly he needs to pay $1,500 back, but that's not... I feel the prominence of this pretty minor business has more to do with the Murdoch Press's hatred of unions than it does to do with the seriousness of the misspending. Zoe Ventura is making her return to Australian television. She's a packed to the rafters star who has spent the past 6 years based in Los Angeles. Apparently she's been tempted home with a meaty role on Home and Away. Sure. The persecution of Mohammed Skaff goes on. Gang rapist Mohammed Skaff was caught with USB drives and pornography, is manipulative and intimidating, and has been charged with 16 offences since being jailed. These are some of the reasons the State Parole Authority has refused to free Skaff, whose non-parole period expired in January last year after serving 17 years of a 23-year sentence. They refused his parole application August 9 because he denies committing any rapes and is still a danger to society. Skaff, who was only 17 when jailed, and frankly, I'm surprised we're allowed to name him, has also not completed his rehabilitation program. Well, I guess whatever the rules are, if you want parole, you've got to comply with them, don't you? January 2024, he'll be out if he doesn't get parole before then. Right, dear Prime Minister, please stop this killer. Dear Prime Minister is always children, isn't it? This is the Telegraph's campaign for the meningococcal B vaccine, which is one of those things where, on the face of it, yes, vaccines are good. On the other hand, this is still a relatively rare disease that kills moderately small numbers, and apparently it's something like $400 million federally would be needed to roll it out, and these calculuses are never easy, but one might think that $400 million could be spent on other things, be it NDIS for over 65s or advanced cancer treatments. Tough one. Convicted Aussie drug smuggler John Nikolic is appealing his jail sentence in a move that could land him more rather than less time in Fiji prison. This is the former horse trainer who was found guilty of smuggling cocaine in March by the Suva High Court and handed a 23-year prison sentence. Okay, so we've got 2 pages of police PR for their Alpine squad, followed by online, watch the squad in action, trying to drive you onto the website. Jonathan Thurston, rugby league player, wants parents to read to their children. So even though it's not the sports section, we've got page 17, most of the page on Israel Folau and Drew Mitchell, another rugby player, and Drew Mitchell wanting to bury the hatchet after eviscerating Folau on Twitter. Right, the Catholic Church will open a network of not-for-profit childcare centres to cut fees by more than half. Get them in young, huh? Andrew Denton's cancelling his Andrew Denton interview series on Channel 7, which I certainly have never watched. Someone with Andrew Denton's profile could quite possibly make more money running his own YouTube channel than he can flogging away on Channel 7. If you need some help with it, Andrew, get in touch. So, Yelena Dokic, the retired tennis player's weight loss, we've got a fair-sized column on. Fijian-born Australians doing well at weightlifting and might soon become a citizen. We've got more on who's been Maya's ambassadors. Pictures of women in mostly pink frocks. Who'd think that down through the years, the one thing that would stay constant about Maya ambassadors would be the need to wear pink. Jessica Halloran says children's sport is now wussified. As I say, God forbid the children might have more fun than the parents on the sideline. Ivan Milat's been out of hospital and back in jail. 2 pages of Harvey Norman. Cole Rowlands, 65, a former real estate agent, is telling his sob story about the cost of treatment for a shark attack and being unable to work and being ineligible for the pension, but the bank's about to foreclose on his house. I'm surprised there are no links to a GoFundMe. But so, having turned 70, John Farnham has now given up smoking. Still drinking. Good for you, Farnsey. He's not looking like a well man in the photo we're using there. On the other hand, he is 70. So they've got a young couple who've bought a house so they don't have to rent anymore. And, I'd love to buy a house so I don't have to rent anymore as well, but despite the fact this household is actually, on average or median terms, doing pretty well by everyone else's standards, we're certainly nowhere close to it. Be great if mum and dad... I'm not actually having a go at my mum and dad at all, it's just this... intergenerational wealth as exacerbated by the real estate market. And it's not like our parents are particularly hard up either. It's what I'm complaining about is the media utterly reliant on real estate advertising, feeding a narrative which is driving up real estate as an investment class and making the housing situation miserable for everyone who isn't in a very well-heeled situation. Anyway, moving on. You're not going to see the Telegraph talk about that. Got another legal who's who. I imagine lawyers, when they get featured in these, buy a lot of papers, is what I can only assume why they keep doing them. Oh, I see they're bigging up the prosecutors, having bigged up the defenders. So Pat Barrett, Peter McGrath, Lou Lungo, Belinda Baker, Maria Chenque, Hugh Baker, Craig Everson, Tanya Smith, Chris Maxwell, Ken Mackay, Neil Adams. Right, online, our top legal eagles, dailytelegraph.com.au. Give us some clicks as well as buying the newspaper. Right, we've got police dogs. Alright, so the delicious Harvey Norman Produce Awards that started sneaking into the paper a couple of weeks ago. Turns out that Jerry Harvey is growing millions of baby cucumbers, he likes to be known as cukes, on a farm where size and quality matters. According to Harvey, the idea of an elite foodie culture is nonsense. To me, everyone who loves cooking and enjoys a home-cut meal is a foodie, he said. And he would like to sell you both food and things to cook with. Right, today's the last day to visit the Australian Museum before it closes for a year-long renovation to bring into the 21st century. Dad's African mission to hunt daughter's killer. Grief-stricken Australian dad is embarked on a dangerous solo mission to Africa in desperate bid to hunt down his daughter's killer. Wish him luck. Now here's a funny little two-part story. Beat the banks, with interest rates at a historic low and the share market tanking on fears of trade war, making the pension go further is proving tough, but there are still ways to do it. Crown Money Management Chief Executive Officer Scott Parry said retirees should look at getting other income streams, including peer-to-peer lenders, including Society One, where you could invest your money, become the bank, you can get rates around 8% on this money, Mr. Parry said. That sounds a lot like financial advice to me, and also sounds a lot like an ad for Crown Money Management and Scott Parry. And I ask why on earth this is in the news section of the newspaper. I imagine every other financial service provider in New South Wales that didn't get that feature is also asking that question. And whoever the publicist was who got that in there is going to be getting some phone calls and making some money. So that's good for them. The Snitch, Law and Order with Ava Benny Morrison and Brendan Hills. Grieving SC returns. New South Wales Director of Public Prosecutions, Lloyd Babb SC, has been welcomed back to work after taking a prolonged period of leave to grieve over the death of his wife Annette. Sure. This is not even a gossip column. This is just... feels like a police and DPP staff newsletter. Right, and from the Snitch straight into The Source, political gossip with Annika Smethurst, Linda Salmalis and Miranda Wood. They're leaving with laughing all the way to the back. Julie Bishop has doubled her pay packet since leaving Parliament. Now, here's an interesting thing. They're listing the job she's doing, which is all interesting companies that want someone high profile to lobby government for them. And then, as well as private aid contractor Palladium. Palladium, you may remember, is the operation run out of a backyard shed that takes hundreds of millions of dollars in contracts to run security services on Australia's offshore detention. But I imagine if that's what you do, you might call yourself a private aid contractor. Oh, so they're saying here that former Prime Minister Tony Abbott will fill a vacancy on the board of the Australian War Memorial. Right at the bottom, they mention, this is moderately interesting, that Bill Shorten has ceased putting his tips into the press gallery football tipping competition and did so around the time of the election. They're suggesting maybe the staff member who knew how to put the tips in has left. Or maybe Bill's given up on everything. But he still is sitting there in Parliament and doing no good at all to every issue he tries to champion. Alright, Hong Kong is saying you must help our fight for freedom. This is from Lucy Khan in Hong Kong. Right, it's back into sport. New Zealand 36, Australia 0, black to reality. Well done, Sunday Telegraph. A headline that is moderately amusing. To the topic, not embarrassing. This is your finest work. Gold star from me. Okay, stupid humans running around to stupid horses running around. Alright, bye-bye savings, ultra luxurious and super exclusive ways to spend your money. I almost feel that's socially irresponsible. Would you try a butt mask? I guess some people are gonna. Well-being, wellness and beauty. Why well-being starts in the belly. All babies must eat. Alright. Back to the horse form guides for people who don't know how to use their phones. Dog torture still continues in New South Wales. Sport, I mean, it's lift out within lift out. It's like Inception. The Ashes, there's nothing like newspaper coverage of a test match in England where they basically end up 2 days behind the action. Hoping that someone reading the newspapers had no access to television, radio, or the internet, and still have to print the column inches of ink. Jessica Halloran's banging on again about wussification. Everyone's a winner, but our kids lose out. Major life lessons are not being learned. I would say you've got a whole life to learn major life lessons, and if the people actually running the sports, who I think know a little bit more about it than either I or Jessica Halloran do, feel that instilling a love of play and playing the game and the fundamental skills of the game before moving on to keeping score and introducing winners and losers and giving the rancid parents on the sideline something else to get frothy about. I don't know. I'd stick with the experts there myself. And so we turn to Peta Credlin. The Sky News page. Peter says, beware the angry panda in the room. Australia, we need to talk about China. About the economic opportunity that's turned into a strategic challenge. About the cuddly panda with sharp teeth and claws. Wow. I mean, I imagine Peter just thinks this is the reading age of her audience. She does talk like she talks down to her audience in a big way, I think. Oh, God, here we go. The insane, not concealed at all racism. Of course, life would be so much simpler if China were like Britain, the only other country to have bulked as large in our trade, well, except for the US. There have been times when imports to Australia from the US were as high as 2/3 of the entire Australian economy. No, she's using Hong Kong as... even though likely crackdown in Hong Kong, look, I think a crackdown is likely in Hong Kong, but to use something that hasn't happened. Peter will use anything at all. Anyway, this is built. The crazy Tories are trying to make sure we stay in the US camp and don't think about the relationship with China as possibly more important. The Chinese side and the US side both keep saying we can't have both, and that's talking to their own interests. I think what the sensible folk have done so far, which is to say we will try and have both as long as we possibly can, is actually a pretty smart approach to the issues. Here's a stupid sentence. China trades with us because it's in China's interest to do so, not in ours. Pretty sure we've been getting a lot out of that. Oh, and here comes more racism from Peta Credlin. Wyatt belled the cat. On Thursday, Indigenous Affairs Minister Ken Wyatt gave a speech in Darwin that's belled the cat on where the whole issue of an Indigenous voice to Parliament is headed, and it should worry everyone who believes our democracy should not be on the basis of race. Despite the Uluru Statement from the Heart demanding an Indigenous voice to Parliament to be enshrined in the Australian Constitution and creating, as even Malcolm Turnbull was forced to concede, a third chamber that would second-guess laws as they related to Indigenous people only, Wyatt said the government would not be putting up a referendum to make this happen. But just because the government knows a referendum vote on an Indigenous voice would fail doesn't mean it's over. Instead, rather than put the issue to people, they will now just legislate it through the Parliament with the support of Labor. What else was telling last week was Wyatt's restated support for a Makarrata Commission, another key recommendation of the Uluru Statement for the creation of a body to supervise a process of agreement-making between governments and First Nations and truth-telling about our history. When the whole issue of the Makarrata arose, I believed the Prime Minister when he said he had no plans to establish a Makarrata Commission, yet following his speech, Ken Wyatt said to my Sky News colleague Matt Cunningham, No, I haven't ruled that out at all, Matt. A commission of some description will exist, and I certainly like the terminology around Makarrata. You think you're being snowed here, I do too. The issue is there are a lot of powerful families in Australia who made their money on destruction and murder and are hell-bent on making sure that it's never legally established what their families did. Quite a lot of them have members in Parliament. Right, thumbs up. Brendan Nelson, who announced he was stepping down as director of the Australian War Memorial on Thursday. He is the best Prime Minister we never had. Thumbs down to Gladys Berejiklian. She needs to get back to New South Wales and sort out the crisis she has brought on herself and the Liberal Party over the issue of late term and sex selection abortion. Again, framing the issues in the most foul way possible. Well done. As usual, Peta Credlin for disgracing humanity and Australia. Every week in the Sunday Telegraph, Peta Credlin brings shame on us as a nation for her continued presence in it. Right, Peter Gleeson says, China, not us, is the elephant in the Pacific on climate change. Right, so Peter Gleeson is simultaneously calling climate change a hoax and then saying that China's the problem, not us. And he says Scott Morrison should know better to go along with the hoax. This message brought to you by the Australian coal industry. So Annika Smethurst is now asking, can we trust Polly's not to hide the truth on the basis of the raids on her? It's good that she's taking that up at least. Mark Boros is still on the opinion page despite his illegal robocalling at the last election. No bad deed goes punished in the pages of the Telegraph. He's saying small business is a winner. Piers Ackerman says, sadly, the abortion bill debate has rapidly descended to the gutter level. You mean the one where we say, you're a piece of shit, Piers? Claire Harvey is saying sex work left Michaela alone and defensive. She's blaming the sex work for the murder. I would blame the murderer. I would even be willing to extend the blame to toxic attitudes towards women and any sense of male empowerment based on violence to women. I think there is some cultural blame to go around there. Maybe it's not as much as Clementine Ford and her friends would say, but I think they have some point. I think blaming sex work for the murder of a sex worker is definitely putting the blame in the wrong place. But this is the Journal of Record for putting blame in the wrong place. The Sydney Telegraph editorial says we can't fence off every cliff. Right, fair enough, good point. Health Hacker says we should spring clean our bodies. Auctions... More on Foxtel and Netflix in one place, because you can't manage two places, can you? I don't know. I mean, stuff's all aimed at the oldies. People still getting married. Right, Painful Road to Activism. This plain-spoken documentary about AFL legend Adam Goodes packs a hefty emotional wallop. So this is the Australian Dream. This is the Stan Grant Adam Goodes documentary. 3 stars they give it. Westeros correspondent Duncan Lay is telling us, read all about it, think you don't enjoy reading, perhaps you just haven't met the right books yet. The fact that Rupert Murdoch owns a number of book publishing imprints probably has nothing to do with it. This is Roger, by the way, has come to join us and say hello. I don't imagine he's going to improve my video making. He rarely does, but I'm sure some of you will enjoy seeing him. If you're wondering, he's a Sphinx cat. G'day, mate. How are you? Billy Idol's got a tour coming, so we're... God, he's had some surgery on his face. Anyway, Billy Idol's talked to a journalist about his tour. If you like Billy Idol's music, then there's your chance to hang out with other Billy Idol fans. Some wrinkly leather action. More talk about Avengers Endgame, which oddly enough is available on Foxtel right now. For whatever reason, Kerry Parnell is noting that she'd rather not do anything on the weekend than have the frozen curries in the fridge. Me too, Kerry. Me too. Alright, Margot Robbie is still the same Margot. She's just a good Aussie girl, they say. I don't know what makes a bad Aussie girl or the difference between a good Aussie girl and just a good girl. But whatever those differences are, which we won't go into, and it might involve a significant dash of that racism stuff. Margot is a good Aussie girl. Annette Sharp is noting that James Warburton is heading back to Channel 7 as CEO. Apparently some in the industry are nervous, given that their whole business model is cooked. I would be too. That's it. So, Roger and I would like to thank you for making it all the way through. And yeah, it really is touching how many of you make the effort to watch the whole way through this. It's rather more than I thought would. If you do enjoy these videos, do please definitely like it, and so you can keep getting and share it. Please, Facebook share is fine. Sending it directly to people you think would like it is probably more effective. And of course, the more people that watch, the more likely I am to keep doing it. And on that note, I'm going to say goodbye, and we'll see you next Sunday. Thank you very much, folks.